When it comes to women and relationships, many men get caught up in the surface. They focus only on what they see: her smile, her body, her sweet words. But underneath, there are powerful emotional forces that drive her actions. If these forces are not met, even the most loyal woman can drift, and sometimes she will cheat. Today, we're going to break down the truth behind why women cheat, not with complicated theories, but with real psychology that every man can understand. We are not here to judge. We are here to understand. Because when you understand, you protect yourself, and you make better choices. This is women's psychology explained simply. Cheating does not usually happen out of nowhere. A woman rarely wakes up one morning and decides, "I will betray my man today." Instead, it happens when certain emotional conditions are ignored for too long. When these conditions build up, she becomes vulnerable to outside temptation. And unless a man understands these hidden triggers, he will always be blindsided. He will think everything was fine, and then suddenly she's gone. Or worse, she's in another man's arms. So let's break down the first trigger, the first condition where women cheat. And remember, our goal is not fear. Our goal is clarity. A Stoic man faces truth calmly, no matter how hard it is. The first trigger is emotional neglect. This is the most powerful and the most common. You see, women are wired to connect. They don't just want a man's presence, they want his attention. And when that attention fades, they start to feel invisible. In women's psychology, this is called emotional starvation. She may still be in the same house with you, you may still talk every day, but if she feels that you are not really present, her mind begins to wander. Let me give you an example. Imagine a man who works long hours. He loves his woman, but he comes home tired. He doesn't talk much, doesn't ask her how she feels, doesn't listen. He thinks, "I provide, I'm faithful, that should be enough." But to her, the silence feels like rejection. She interprets it as distance, and in her psychology, distance equals danger. She feels unsafe emotionally. So when another man at work or online begins to give her attention, listens to her, smiles at her, she feels alive again. Slowly, she compares. She says to herself, "Why does he see me when my man doesn't?" And before you know it, she crosses a line she once swore she never would. This is why emotional neglect is so dangerous. Most men don't even notice it happening. They think cheating only comes from lust or from bad morals, but in reality, many women cheat not because of physical desire, but because of emotional emptiness. Women's psychology shows us that the brain processes neglect like pain. It hurts. And just like pain, she will look for relief wherever she can find it. Now here's where the Stoic mindset comes in. As a man, you cannot control everything about her emotions, but you can control your awareness. You can stay present. You can pay attention. The truth is, presence is more powerful than gifts, more powerful than money, more powerful than apologies after things break. When she feels seen, she feels secure. And when she feels secure, cheating becomes less likely. But let's be clear. This is not about being her entertainer 24/7. A Stoic man does not live to please. He lives with balance. Attention is not weakness. It is leadership. It is saying, "I am here. I notice. I am not blind." That's what women crave. That's what stops them from looking elsewhere. Now, some men will hear this and say, "So what? If I don't give her constant attention, she'll cheat." That's unfair. But let's pause. Remember, psychology is not about fairness. It's about reality. Just as men are wired to seek respect, women are wired to seek connection. When respect is missing, men withdraw or even step out. When connection is missing, women do the same. Different needs, same outcome. This is why awareness is everything. If you see that she is reaching out, asking questions, trying to connect, and you ignore it, understand that she will eventually stop asking. And when she stops, she starts listening to someone else. In the end, emotional neglect is the first big condition where women cheat. And the lesson here is not to become paranoid or overprotective. The lesson is to remain present, to notice the small signs, and to treat connection as something sacred. Because if you don't, another man will. And that brings us to the second trigger, which we will dive into next. It is just as powerful as neglect, but it works in a different way. Instead of silence, it is about tension. Instead of distance, it is about conflict. And when it is not handled properly, it becomes the second door that leads her into the arms of another man. The second big trigger that leads women to cheat is unresolved conflict. You see, most men believe fights and arguments are just normal parts of relationships, and they are. But the danger comes when those fights are never truly resolved. When a man and a woman clash, words are said, feelings are hurt, but nothing gets healed. It creates emotional scars. And in women's psychology, those scars don't just sit quietly. They begin to speak, whispering to her that she is not valued, not respected, not loved. Conflict in itself is not the problem. The problem is when conflict becomes a cycle with no end. Imagine this. Every week there is an argument. She says one thing, he says another. Both walk away angry. Maybe later they act like nothing happened. Maybe they make up physically, but the real issue is still there. Over time, this builds resentment, and resentment is poison in a woman's heart. Now, here's the key difference between men and women. Men often can compartmentalize. They can fight, cool down, and then shift their focus elsewhere. But women are more relational. Unresolved conflict doesn't just stay in one corner of their mind. It spreads into how they see the whole relationship. If the tension is never lifted, they begin to feel like the bond is broken permanently. And when that happens, they are vulnerable. So what does this look like in practice? Let's say a woman feels criticized constantly. Every small thing she does is judged. She tries to defend herself, but the man doesn't listen. Weeks pass, months pass, and the criticisms never stop. Eventually, another man comes along. He listens, he validates, he makes her feel appreciated. Even if it's just surface-level flattery to her, it feels like freedom compared to the weight of constant criticism. And once again, she finds herself opening a door she should never open. Or maybe it's not criticism. Maybe it's a lack of compromise. The couple fights about money, about family, about the future. The man refuses to meet her halfway. She feels stuck, unheard. And then she meets someone who tells her, "I understand you." That simple phrase, "I understand you," becomes like water to a thirsty soul. She knows she shouldn't give in, but her resentment towards her partner blinds her. She convinces herself that she deserves this escape, this new beginning. And just like that, betrayal happens. This is why unresolved conflict is so dangerous. It's not about the size of the fight. It's about the depth of the wound. If the wound is never cleaned, it will fester. And when it festers, someone else will step in and act like the healer. But in reality, they are only feeding off her pain. Here is where Stoicism gives us wisdom. A Stoic man understands that conflict is unavoidable, but neglecting resolution is unacceptable. He does not let wounds sit open. He does not let resentment build. He chooses to address issues calmly, firmly, and with finality. Not by yelling, not by dominating, but by leading the way to peace. You see, peace in a relationship is not weakness. It is strength. It is the ability to put ego aside for the sake of clarity and stability. So, the second trigger is unresolved conflict. And the lesson is this: arguments left open create openings for outsiders. If you want to protect your relationship, don't just fight, resolve. Don't just argue, heal. Don't just move on, close the wound. Now let's move to the third and final trigger. This one is not about neglect or conflict. It is about desire. More specifically, it is about unmet desires and unfulfilled needs. And this is where women's psychology shows us something many men don't want to hear. The third trigger is unmet intimacy needs. Men often assume women cheat for emotional reasons only. They think, she wants attention, she wants romance. But in truth, women also have physical desires. When those desires are ignored, dismissed, or ridiculed, she begins to feel undesired, and in her mind, being undesired equals being unloved. Picture this. A woman wants intimacy. She reaches for her man, but he turns away. Maybe he is stressed, tired, distracted. It happens once, it happens twice, and soon it becomes a pattern. Each rejection chips away at her confidence. She starts to wonder, am I no longer attractive? Does he even want me? And once again, she becomes vulnerable. When another man compliments her, touches her hand, looks at her with hunger, she feels something she has been missing. And temptation grows. Unmet intimacy needs can also take another form. Some men become selfish in intimacy. They only focus on their own release, ignoring her satisfaction. Over time, she associates intimacy not with connection, but with emptiness. In women's psychology, this is dangerous. Because intimacy is not just physical. It is emotional bonding through the physical. When that bond is broken, cheating becomes her way of trying to find it again. Now, does this mean a man must constantly be available, constantly initiate, constantly please? No. That is not Stoicism. That is slavery. What it means is awareness. It means understanding that intimacy is not a luxury, it is a core part of her emotional stability. Just as respect fuels a man, intimacy fuels a woman. And when it is neglected, she begins to look elsewhere. So here we are. The three big conditions where women cheat. Number 1, emotional neglect. Number 2, unresolved conflict. Number 3, unmet intimacy needs. Together, these create a storm that can destroy even the strongest looking relationship. But now the question is, what do we do with this knowledge? Do we become paranoid? Do we watch every move she makes, fearing betrayal at every corner? No. That is weakness. That is insecurity. A Stoic man does not live in fear of betrayal. He lives in awareness, calm, and self-respect. The true lesson here is control. You cannot control her choices, but you can control your awareness. You can control your presence. You can control your leadership in the relationship. And most importantly, you can control your response if betrayal ever comes. Because sometimes, no matter what you do, she may still cheat. And if that happens, your strength is shown in how you walk away, not in how you beg. So let this truth guide you. Women cheat when these three things happen. When they feel neglected, when they feel unresolved pain, and when they feel undesired. If you want to protect yourself, be aware of these triggers. But never let fear dictate your life. A Stoic man observes, adapts, and stands firm. He does not panic. He does not chase. He does not lose himself. In the end, relationships are not about control. They are about clarity. If you understand women's psychology, you gain clarity. And with clarity comes power, the power to lead with wisdom, to choose wisely, and to protect your peace. So remember this, women cheat when these three things happen. But a Stoic man, he prepares his mind, guards his heart, and keeps his strength. That is how you win, no matter what she chooses. Most men hear the word cheating and immediately feel anger, betrayal, or fear. But a Stoic man trains himself to go deeper. He does not just react, he studies. He learns the patterns, he understands the triggers, and then he prepares himself. Because knowledge without action is useless. You now know the three main reasons women cheat. But let's go further. Let's put these lessons into real-life perspective, so you never have to be caught off guard. Think of the first trigger again, emotional neglect. Imagine you are in a relationship and things are comfortable. You live together, you eat together, but the spark is gone. You no longer ask her about her day. She tries to share her feelings, but you're distracted. Over time, her voice gets quieter. Her voice gets She starts scrolling on her phone more, looking for connection online. Eventually, she meets someone on social media who replies faster, listens longer, and gives her the validation she has been craving. You don't notice the danger until it's too late. That is how neglect works. It creeps in silently, and before you know it, the bond is broken. Now think of the second trigger, unresolved conflict. A couple that fights without resolution is like a house with cracks in the foundation. At first, the house looks fine, but with each storm, the cracks grow wider. She starts to see her man not as her partner, but as her enemy. And when another man comes along who feels like an ally, she turns to him. Not because she planned it, but because her heart was already broken long before she crossed the line. That is why unresolved conflict is so deadly. It makes her long for peace elsewhere. Then there is the third trigger, unmet intimacy needs. Many men underestimate how powerful this is. They think, she's not as physical as I am, so it doesn't matter. But in reality, intimacy is deeply tied to her emotions. If she feels rejected in bed, she feels rejected as a woman. If she feels used in bed, she feels unloved as a partner. Over time, these feelings build a void inside her. And when someone else makes her feel wanted again, the temptation becomes almost impossible for her to resist. Now, let's connect these triggers to the modern world. In the past, women had fewer opportunities to act on these feelings. Social circles were smaller. Temptation was less available. Today, with social media, dating apps, and constant online attention, every woman has dozens of men ready to fill the gaps her partner leaves behind. This means the risks are higher. The triggers we spoke about are now magnified. A single moment of neglect, conflict, or rejection can lead to instant attention from someone else. That's why awareness is more important now than ever before. But here is the Stoic truth. Even with this knowledge, you cannot stop a woman from making her choice. You cannot guard her every move, check her phone, or track her life. That is not strength. That is insecurity. True strength is knowing the risks, leading with presence, and accepting reality calmly. If she chooses loyalty, you value it. If she chooses betrayal, you let her go with dignity. That is Stoicism in action. So how do you apply this knowledge practically? Start with yourself. Ask, am I present or am I distracted? Do I resolve conflict or do I let it sit? Do I value intimacy or do I treat it like a chore? These questions are not about blaming yourself for her choices. They're about making sure you are leading from a place of awareness. When you lead, she feels secure. And when she feels secure, the chances of betrayal decrease. But if despite all your efforts she still cheats, you must remember this. Her actions do not define your worth as a man. Her betrayal is a reflection of her choices, her psychology, her inability to control temptation. A Stoic man does not break down over what he cannot control. He stands firm, he walks away, and he builds again. In the end, women cheat when these three things happen: neglect, unresolved conflict, and unmet intimacy. But your power as a man is not in trying to control her. It is in controlling yourself. It is in living with presence, addressing problems calmly, and respecting both her needs and your own. That is how you stay grounded in a world full of temptation. That is how you protect your peace. So the choice is yours. You can live blind, ignoring the signs, pretending cheating is random, or you can live aware, seeing the patterns, and preparing your mind. A Stoic man always chooses awareness. He knows that betrayal may come, but he also knows that no betrayal can destroy him unless he allows it. Stay calm, stay strong, stay stoic.